Should you use Tariq ibn Ziyad in the open field or put sculptures into this commander to do that? In this video, I've got the test results to prove to you whether or not he's worth the investment. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And when Tariq ibn Ziyad hit the game, I said, I don't think that he's a great investment for the open field. If you invested in him for rallying, then you'd use him, but I wouldn't go out of your way to go and put sculptures in him to use in the field. Now, with that said, I've expertised him for rallying, and I've got a bunch of test results to share with you today to prove whether or not he's actually good in the field, and I'll talk to you about his very best combinations. And if this is the sort of stuff you're really interested in, consider subscribing to the channel for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies, and throw a like on the video to support the channel. It really means a lot to me. Now, as is the case in all of my videos, there's timestamps, so you can navigate to whichever part of this video you're interested in. But the first thing I want to do is review the skills on this commander and talk about the things we learned about these skills from doing testing. Then I'll talk very briefly about the test methodology we used. I'll show you the testing and the test results, and we'll wrap things up with some conclusions. Now let's start with the skills on Tariq ibn Ziyad and why it is that people are thinking, hey, should I invest in this commander? And I said long ago that for open field fighting, you really want march speed, big debuffs, area of effect damage, big buffs to your team, that's AoE buffs. Tariq ibn Ziyad doesn't have much of any of that, but he does do one thing that was extremely noticeable in the 1v1 testing, and that is this effect right over here. The fourth skill is a rage reduction to the enemy, reducing the rage of the enemy by 80 for 3 seconds. This effect is way better than you would think. Now, I've gone way in depth in other videos about how rage works, but I will very briefly review here for people who haven't seen that before. This is courtesy of another YouTuber, Wick Gaming, who popularized the fact that in Rise of Kingdoms, you can only gain a maximum of 220 rage per turn. What the game does is it adds up all the ways you would have gained rage, and if you would have gained over 220 rage, it drops you back down to 220 for that one turn. But then, rage reduction effects apply, which means these effects are really powerful. Even if the enemy had more than 300 rage they would have gained in a turn. First, they would be dropped down to 220, which is the maximum per turn. Then you get reduced by this 80. All that to say that rage reductions are stupid strong. And in the 1v1 duels we had here, we attributed a lot of the success of this commander to this one effect. So although he doesn't have all the other things I was describing for the open field that is really powerful, this rage reduction is really good. There's just one problem I want to remind you of before we look at these duels, which is that in the open field, you're not really bringing one march. You're going to bring probably 5 marches. If you're investing in a commander like Tariq ibn Ziyad, you should have lots of other commanders you've already invested in first. So if you're bringing 5 marches and you swarm a target, that target's going to pop. It's not going to last very long. So the fact that you're reducing the rage doesn't matter really in the open field in the same way that it does in a duel. Because in the open field, if they've dropped down to like 100,000 troops left in their march, if they use their active skill, they're not doing all that much damage anyways. I think that this effect is very powerful. And the other thing we need to call attention to on this fourth skill is the fact that he does 15% increased damage. This means Tariq ibn Ziyad must be paired with another high damage commander. The rest of his kit is very pedestrian in my opinion. The active skill is just 2,500 damage factor when he's expertised, and if he's getting swarmed, you get a little bit of extra damage factor. The next skill gives you a tiny amount of march speed outside of territory, 10%, and also 40% attack, also 10% damage versus cavalry, which is nice. Then the third skill here is all about hitting garrisons, and this is an open field video. This is about field fighting, but if you do swarm garrisons, actually Tariq ibn Ziyad's amazing. I swarm garrisons. I'm interested in Tariq ibn Ziyad for that. He is good for that. This third skill is really all about that. Expertise was enhancing the active skill here, okay? If you were using him as the primary You could run these talents, but this is really more of like a rally build than the open field build. But there's not really a great open field build. I mean, what are you going to add here? Some march speed? Certainly march speed will be good. You've got to make sacrifices to get march speed, so I think you're going to get rid of Desperate Elegy. In fact, I've probably got a field build right over here. You would get rid of some of these points off to the side to get a little bit more march speed, but I actually think in these test results, you'll get a much better test result with this build, which is what we used. So keep in mind that when you look at these test results and you see, oh, how's Tariq ibn Ziyad doing? We used the best build possible for a duel situation. You would probably do kind of worse in the open field because you're going to make sacrifices to combat stuff in order to get march speed reduction. Some of these effects over here are pretty solid. Now, I'm going to flash on the screen very briefly the gear that my testing partner was using, that is Cortex, for the later half of these tests. The first round of testing we did, by the way, was no gear at all. And you may be like, Chisgule, you've said many times that a no gear test is not worth much. And I have. But the reason that we did a no gear test is we wanted to do just as many combos as possible. Tariq is the primary, using him as the secondary, using all kinds of commanders. And in an Ark of Osiris practice match, which is where we did this testing, you can't switch your gear mid-match. So we did 2 rounds of testing. First, I was testing with Fat Hands, who you may remember from really a number of my videos. I did an account overview of him. Card will be up in the top for that one. And also, at over 200 million power, he had gotten zeroed in the past, which was pretty savage, but he had a crazy response. I'll remind you of that at the end of the video in case you want to see that one. But Fat Hands and I originally just tested no gear so that we found the very best Tariq combo. From there, we actually took it into a practice match where we had full gear. That's where I tested with Cortex, with that gear I was just showing you. And we were able to find, I think, some pretty interesting information. And spoiler alert, I think he is definitely viable, but let's look at the results. For the purpose of this testing, Fat Hands brought the same thing to the open field every time. That's a Guan, Skippy, no equipment, no special unit, by the way, base infantry, no city theme. We wanted to do this so that we'd have base units for both sides, so that it wasn't skewed by having extra base stats from the special unit. I used Skippy Tariq ibn Ziyad and got a big fat win over here, 25,800 to 38,000. Now look, I have said repeatedly that I think Skippy is the best open field commander in the game. People give me a hard time. They say Nevsky is better. I think Skippy is the best open field commander, and you pair anybody with Skippy, it's gonna look pretty damn good because he's so powerful. So he got a huge win here, and it's not surprising. But this is probably the very best combo we found for Tariq ibn Ziyad. It really only goes downhill from here. And by the way, I do need to say that it's really unscientific to run a test once and then claim that that's reality. We didn't have enough time to run multiple tests with each of these combos, which is why later on, you'll see once we narrow it down to just using one combo, that Cortex and I do lots of testing repeatedly to prove whether or not something is actually good, okay? So it could be that some of these results would have been very different if we tested repeatedly. I then did Guan Yu, Tariq ibn Ziyad, and we had 35,000 sevs for us, 23,000 sevs for them. Flipped the result. You can see how much better Skippy is than really almost any commander for the open field. It's crazy. So using the Skippy was way better than using the Guan, even though Tariq really cares about being with a commander who does damage. These two have no tanky stats whatsoever, so they just don't hold up well. Tariq has no defensive capability at all. So I thought, hey, pair him with Honda Tarakatsu, but that did not do well either. It did okay. 37,000 to 30,000 is okay, but it wasn't amazing. Up next, I said, hey, let's pair with Sargon. We know it works for rallies. Does it work for field? And let me tell you, 24,000 to 38,000 is a pretty good result. Yes, big win here. So far we've seen that Skippy, Tariq, and Sargon, Tariq, works really well. But can we find any other combos? Pakal did not do well. I've said before, I think Pakal is a bad invest for the open field. He's great as a cheeseburger. He can be used for rallies. But in the open field, this is a big do not do, okay? Don't do this. 38,000 to 25,000, not a good result. Even though he's very tanky, the problem here is that Tariq has to be paired with someone who has lots of damage and lots of tankiness. There's very few commanders that offer that, Okay? There are very few. Pakal only has the tankiness and doesn't have much benefit that he's getting from the 15% all damage boost on Tariq ibn Ziyad and the 40% attack. From here, I thought, hey, I don't think Tariq Leo is going to work, but let's do it. And actually, we got a good result, but only because we ran this down to the marches getting sad-faced. So we did actually lose this fight. At 10%, Leonidas does his 400% damage boost, and it evened out this trade in a way that just would not be something you could replicate in the open field. So I would not recommend this for the open field. I don't want you to get confused by this result. I don't think it's a win, or a good combo is what I'm trying to say. We tried to pair with Herald, but as I mentioned earlier, Herald does damage, but actually like reverse tankiness. He makes you less tanky. 37,000 to 22,000 is a terrible trade. Would not recommend it. We paired with Alexander the Great, and this is okay. Like, you could do this. But again, I don't know why you would be investing in a commander where it's like, oh, look, I can get an okay trade. Like, no, that's not the kind of combo you're trying to make. Next, I did Charles Martel with Tariq ibn Ziyad. Look, Charles Martel with Skippy works really well. So why wouldn't this work? Well, I didn't get a great result here. 37,000 to 30. Is it okay? Sure. I mean, we're talking about using Charles Martel. If you can weaponize Charles Martel, that's not bad in the grand scheme of things. But would I recommend investing in a combo where we're like, look, it did mediocre? Not really. Trajan with Tariq ibn Ziyad, I was reaching. It's a stretch. I thought it could be cool. Trajan is tanky, but as I'm going to repeat over and over, he's missing the second piece of the puzzle. Tanky plus damage dealt. So it wasn't a good combo. 38,000 to 22,000 is a big L. From here, I did one other test that I was just kind of interested in seeing. We had never done a test before with Sargon and Honda Tadakatsu. Bonus fact from the video. Sargon with Honda Tadakatsu absolutely slaps. It freaking wrecked Guan Yu, 27,000 to 36,000. Looks like I have one other test here. Richard the First. Yeah, this is not great, but actually not terrible. I'm surprised that this was not worse. 44,000 to 38,000. You could do it. Again, don't invest in a commander to try to make a mediocre combo. Not a great plan. So this was overall interesting learning. I wish I had a CJ expertise, but I wouldn't put the sculptures into it personally at this point in order to show that to you. However, the two winning combos were Skippy and Sargon, right? Those were the two wins. So if you were going to use Tariq ibn Ziyad in the open field and you had a space with Skippy or Sargon, it seems like that could work. But this is not enough testing to really prove that. So we took what I thought was the best combo and also would be the most informative. I mean, we've seen a lot of rally testing with these two paired together. We know that's going to work, at least in a rally context. But I wanted to see what could we do with Tariq ibn Ziyad that is the best of the best in the open field and is it viable? So then I did my testing with Cortex, Skippy, and Tariq. So this testing I thought was really insightful. Now we're in the realm of like full gear testing. And for those of you that haven't seen my infantry gear, okay, the infantry gear I used for this test is a full crit, best in the game, cannot do better set for dueling. This is it. This is the best you can possibly do, in my opinion anyways. Okay, KVK, weapon, and helmet, crit, all this stuff's crit. I'm not going to go through it. You've seen it before. I talk about it maybe too much. Okay, so let's go and look at these duels that we did with Cortex, and I think this is really insightful. And we did at least 20, so I'll try to go through this pretty quickly and share all the takeaways. Cortex's best gear was on Boudica Artemisia. Oh, on Boudica, really, archers. And so he just switched around the secondary over and over. And I think he was even very surprised at how well this combo did. Skippy and Tariq beat Boudica Artemisia 25,000 to 30,000. It also beat Boudica Isong 24,000 to 31,000. It beat Boudica Cyrus. Wait a minute. No, it did not. This was the combo where Cortex was like, I told you Cyrus is good. I've been telling you Cyrus is good forever. So actually we lost to Cyrus. Cyrus was one of the only combos, spoiler alert, that I think did very well. I was going to say kind of clapped, but it's not that much of a win. 31,000 sevs for me and 24,000 just about sevs for Cortex here. Boudica Cyrus did well. And I said a long time ago, this combo was very good. Turns out it is actually very good. Okay, so it beat Skippy Tariq. Cool. Next up, Skippy Tariq ibn Ziyad versus Boudica Cyrus. Again, now I win. 23,000 to 30,000. Also, this is why I was saying earlier, it's really unscientific to run the test just once. Look at that, flipped result. You can't look at one test result and be like, look, it's absolute truth. So we ran it again. 25,000, really almost 26,000 to 28,000. I got yet another win here. So Skippy and Tariq are surviving and in fact thriving in this gauntlet. Up next was Boudica Tommy. I've said before, I don't think this is a good combo. Didn't do particularly well. 21,000 to 31,000. Victory for the Skippy. Next is Boudica Honda. Very good combo. Actually won the trade for Cortex. I said a long time ago that possibly one of the best combos for Boudica is with Honda, and here we are with a great duel result. 29,000 for me, 28,000 for Cortex. By the way, Cortex is the Ottoman civilization. I'm the Viking civilization, so we both have a special unit advantage here. I mean, we're all in. The only thing he's missing is a couple iconics on the accessories, I think. I don't know. I shared the picture earlier, so I'll have to refresh myself on that one. Up next, Skippy Tariq versus Boudica Nebu. 23,000 to 30,000. I then battled against Boudica Edward of Woodstock. At this point, Cortex is reaching. He's desperate for things that might get a win. And Edward of Woodstock secondary did better than I thought it should. 23,000 to 31,000 is kind of alarming. It's very strange that a Edward of Woodstock secondary was not embarrassingly bad. In fact, I've made videos in the past talking about how everybody's sleeping on Caesar, and here is Caesar almost beating the combo. Boudica Caesar, 32,000 to 33,000. I'll keep saying it, video over video, that Caesar's good, but card will be up in the top for that testing. I'll remind you at the end of this one, you probably want to watch more about Caesar. 20,000 to 31,000 with a Boudica El Cid. 31,000 to 42,000, we switched up the Cavs. Dude, look at this. You would expect infantry to beat cavalry. And in my opinion, Cortex was not using the best cavalry gear possible. I think he should have been using Horn. Cortex said he would overrage. I think you just want all the rage you can get. It doesn't matter if sometimes you overrage, as I was describing earlier in the video. He no longer has the special unit advantage. So I have several advantages going for me. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have iconics on the two accessories, and he doesn't have the special unit, whereas I do. So I have some advantages here, but I'm winning against Joan Nevsky. 31,000 to 43,000 almost. Against Joan William Clappin. 23,000 to 43,000 just about. I guess it's almost 24,000 to that amount. 20,000 to 46,000. Again, okay, Joan XY. Don't do this, but remember, we could only gear one commander, and he geared up the Joan. So there's the result. Up next is Joan Saladin, 24,000 to 47,000. Up next was Joan Honda, 26,000 to 49,900. Then we've got Joan Attila. At this point, he's just reaching, okay? He's just trying to see what works and trying to find literally anything. 19,000 to 44,000. You'd laugh at this and you'd say this, oh, that's stupid. But then remember, we used Caesar earlier and it almost got a win. So you just got to test and see. Joan of Arc, Chandragupta got absolutely demolished. 25,000 to 54,000. Then we ran Joan of Arc Takeda, 18,000 to 38,000. Then we ran Joan Khan, which you may remember I said would be bad, because of the way that skill cycles work, and both of these commanders use extra activations of their active skills, because there is a 1 second downtime after every use of an active skill, because both of these commanders get extra activations of active skills, you end up slowing down the amount of active skills you would use. Up next, Joan of Arc Caesar, the secret tech, and it got destroyed. 25,000 to 45,000. Then 22,000 to 43,000 with the Joan of Arc Minamoto, and 22,000 to 38,000. Then within the final minutes of the practice match, Cortex switched it up to infantry. The infantry gear he had on was way, way worse, and it was 22,000 to 38,000. The funny thing is that Cortex was goofing off in the open field earlier. He may or may not have swarmed a Barb Fort rally. So he had popped a 50% expansion, and we were dueling a little bit, and he brought out his infantry, which we knew had worse gear, and he was beating me, and then he realized he forgot that the armies he was bringing out had 330,000 in them. Yeah, so he was like, oopsies, my bad. I was like, oh my God, you're beating me. And then we were like, wait, those tests have 330,000. So I either deleted those or didn't put them in my favorites. So all the other ones had an even number of troops. Trust me on this. So what are the takeaways here about Tariq ibn Ziyad? And by the way, if you've made it this far into a Chisgule Gaming video, obviously you're getting value from the video. So if you do me just a huge favor, if you could throw a like on here and subscribe to the channel so you get these videos directly to your YouTube feed. It's a win for you and a huge win for me. Thank you for your support. Who would I pair with Tariq? I would say for sure, if you're going to use him in the open field, pair with Sargon or pair with Skippy. If you're not going to pair with one of those commanders, I certainly don't think that you should be putting a bunch of sculptures into him. And where does Tariq sit in my eyes on the totem pole for commanders you should invest in? Man, I would put him below so many commanders. I'm not saying he's bad, but I'm saying if you don't have Guan Yu, Nevsky, Boudica, if you don't have commanders like William, who else? And I'm not going to say XY necessarily, but Skippy's really good. Joan Prime is really good. There are just so many commanders I would put in a higher priority over Tariq. But if you did invest in him, and you even said, what if Chisgule, I'm just going to not put a ton of sculptures into him. Could I do like a 5-5-1-5? Man, I suppose you could do it. I suppose you could do it. You could marry him to Skippy for a long time. But I just feel like, as I gave in my original guidance, he's the kind of commander, if you expertise him for rallying, you should use him. But I just don't know that I would go out of my way to max him. In my opinion, he's missing the kind of utility that would make him a must-keep, a must-use commander. He's the kind of commander I would be looking to replace. And if you already had someone like Leonidas expertise, just keep using Leonidas. I wouldn't try to swap in Tariq ibn Ziyad. If you have somebody else like, I don't know, CJ or one of these other commanders, like I just would keep using them instead of trying to swap him in. And PS, just to show you how serious I am about that recommendation, because I'm a madman, I have a second infantry account where, yeah, I bring 3 infantry marches to the open field. This is my second account, my restart project, where I've got plenty of infantry gear, okay, and plenty of commanders I could swap in. I'm not going to use him on this account. I'm not going to put a single sculpture into Tariq. I even stopped battling in the Mightiest Governor where I was getting close to getting a full unlock of him because I said, I don't think I want to invest into him on this account. I don't want to take sculptures away from someone who would actually like really need him for rallying or not garrisoning, but for rallying or thinks it's a good idea. I mean, on this account, I'm going to go expertise Sargon. I actually have the sculptures. I'm going to make a video where I do 5550 Sargon because so many people have been hyping that up. I want to test for you exactly how good it is compared to a expertise Sargon. So I'm going to do that for you really soon. But even with 3 infantry marches, I wouldn't go out of your way to expertise Tariq because eventually you'll replace him for someone who has utility. All right. So in my opinion, save those sculptures for the future. And if you have them and you did expertise him, use him. And if you already took him to 5-5-1-5 or you've got him expertise just for using in the field, I think you could enjoy him for a while. Pair him with Skippy and you will go wreck some people. However, mentally prepare for other commanders coming out. Maybe it'll be a full year. And then he'll probably be on the chopping block before a lot of the other commanders you have. If you found this video really helpful, do me a huge favor. As I said earlier, throw a like on here and subscribe to the channel. As I mentioned earlier, there's a couple videos I think you might really like, and I'll have cards for those in the end screen in just a second. That includes Fat Hand's legendary response to getting zeroed, and also information about how Rage works. If you want to know more, those cards will be in the end screen. Thanks for watching.